come back from that lunch break. I hope we all have enough energy to make this next session a successful one. Kindly use your headset so you can hear me. It's a silent conference. Thank you. Do we all have a headset? Headset rather. Without taking much of your time, I'd like to invite Chris Burns, who will be talking about safe and green mobility and how low and middle income countries can achieve this. Chris, are you ready? You ready? The floor is yours. Yeah. That's it.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will leave that off at the moment. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this EDD event. I guess Falanka has already introduced the event, if I understand well, about safe mobility and about green mobility in the developing countries. And that figure that haunted me when I was doing my homework on this, 1.3 million people dying in traffic accidents, tens of millions who are injured every year. This is like a war every year. I've covered lots of conflicts. And that is why we're here. This is an issue that should not be overlooked at European Development Days. And that is what we're looking at, thanks to the UN, thanks to the Commission, thanks to so many who are here. And I would like to call up my speakers for the initial talk, because time is very tight. So I will call up Jean Todt, who is the special envoy for road safety for the UN Secretary General. Jean Todt, please. And as he's coming up, you know, some former race car drivers there's one that started an airline, okay? Another that talked about responsible drinking. Please, Jean, comme vous voulez. What about road safety? And that is what Jean is campaigning for. I'd like to also call up Dagmawit Moges, Minister of Transport and Logistics of Ethiopia. Please, Madam Minister, who used to be a deputy mayor of Addis Ababa, which I know quite well. So she knows what she's talking about when it comes to traffic safety, right, Madam Minister? Walter Goetz, who is head of cabinet of Transport Commissioner Adina Valian, who had an extremely important meeting to go to. So in her stead is a very able Walter. And then Giovanni Pintor, who is EDD Young Leader and Partnership Officer from Sardinia, which I also know quite well as well. Benvenuto. Let me also just remind the questions you can send for those of you who are connected is via Slido, and those of you in the audience, we have a roving microphone for that as well. Keep in mind the hashtags EDD22 and Safe Green Mobility. So please cast wider. What you hear today is very, very important. Let's raise consciousness about this extremely important issue. So this is part one. We're talking about the challenges. We're talking about the roles that different groups play and the partnerships, the potential partnerships. That's a lot of what EDD is all about. And that's where I'd like to kick it off with Jean Todt, si ça vous va. Maintenant, with Jean Todt, and what is being done at the UN level. I know that there are UN RSF projects, there's UNEP, there's UNESE, there's a cycling initiative by UNESE. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the challenges are and what solutions, what partnerships you are pushing as Special Envoy. Jean, please.
So, thank you. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here with my colleagues. And as you rightly say, I mean, the road is the #1 killer for youth between 5 to 29 years old age. It's a carnage. 1.3 million people die every year on the roads. You have between 30 to 50 million people who are injured with disability. And so it's a burden for the victims and also for the society because it's a huge cost. It's between 3 to 5% of the GDP of countries. And
Huge. That's huge when it comes to.
and in fact, we are here in Europe with a representation of different countries, including Africa. And I must say, over the last 4 decades, Europe has made sensational progress on road safety, and number of victims have been decreasing by about 15. You know, because the number itself has been decreased by 5, but the number of vehicles have increased by 3. And unfortunately, in what we call low and middle income countries, the figures are increasing. And incidentally, we had a meeting with the Minister of Transport of Ethiopia, several times, and it's pleasing to see that those countries start to put road safety on top of the agenda. And as we know, we have the prescriptions. It's around education, it's around law enforcement, level of vehicles, level of road infrastructures, and post-crash care. So in a way, it's easy to say, but it's much more difficult to put in enforcement.
Yeah, in the execution is difficult.
And of course, you know, if we speak, for example, going back to Ethiopia, it's 110 million populations. So to change the mentality and all that takes time, but we need strong leaders to decide that it has to change. And my job as the UN Secretary General Special Envoy for Road Safety is to work with governments and to try to convince them that this burden needs to be addressed. And there are some good signs. Incidentally, it was the UN Decade of Action for Road Safety 2010-2020, which is now 2020-2030. Road safety is part of the SDG 3.6 with the aim to halve the number of victims by 2030.
Yeah.
And 11.2, which is to give access to public transportation to any citizen.
Right. That's one of the SDGs on this
Exactly.
pin here, right?
Congratulations.
The 17, right?
But it's not enough to have it now. We need to have it successful.
We need to have results, and cutting those casualties in half by 2030 is no easy task. Let us find out what is going on the ground in Ethiopia. Madam Minister, tell us the challenge and tell us what you're doing to try to cut those casualties in half.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here along with the UN Special Envoy, Jean-Tad, and other colleagues. As a government, we have given due emphasis for the issue of road safety. And my government, especially during the past 3 years, we are working aggressively on this agenda. And our people's representatives, the Council of Ministers, as well as the House of People's Representatives, recently approved and ratified the UN Road Traffic Convention, as well as the African Road Safety Charter. And by doing that, we try to ratify transport policy as a nation. And at the heart of our policy, the issue of road safety gets prior agenda.
Good.
And not only in the policy, based on that policy, we have prepared a 10-year perspective plan. In that 10-year perspective plan, we have set a target to reduce the rate of fatalities from 34.3 per 10,000 vehicles to that of 10 per 10,000 vehicles, which really aligns with the second decade of action. And this 10-year perspective plan is in implementation during the past 1.5 years. And in that, we are able to reduce from 34.3 to that of 32.6. And even if we're starting, because of the actions that we have taken aggressively as a government, we are seeing some results, and it's very promising that we're going to attain the target as per our intended agenda.
Now, one of those actions that you've taken is extending the bike lanes, and that was kind of a silver lining during the COVID crisis, wasn't it? That you had a chance to do that, and now you're seeing results, right?
Yes, exactly. During the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to ratify our non-motorized transport strategy. And that strategy gave emphasis for the construction of walking lanes and as well as cycling lanes. And our non-motorized transport strategy is going to be implemented in 69 cities that we have identified in our country. When we see only the capital city, Addis Ababa, we are able to build about 46 kilometers of cycle lanes and 1,020 kilometers of walkways during the past 3 years. And we are working aggressively to expand what we have started in the capital to the other cities that we have. That's not the only action that we have taken. We worked as a transport minister, we worked with Ministry of Education, and we are able to inculcate the issue of road safety in our primary and secondary education curriculum.
Ah, good.
And it is started as of this year. And we believe that these youngsters, they're going to be the drivers of tomorrow. And at the same time, they're going to be the road users of tomorrow and currently. And it's not only in the primary and secondary education. Even at tertiary level, we started a master's program on exclusively road safety. Because if we don't have educated people on this area, we may not be able to reduce the rate of fatality, which is taking the youngsters, the futures of our population. And as you said it rightly, road fatalities or road accidents, they are just like wars without guns.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We are losing significant number of population, and that's why we're working aggressively. So it's not only that we are taking several actions as well.
Right.
For instance, our House of People's Representatives, before 2 years after we have made an assessment, ratified a law on excise tax, which is going to discourage the importation of used and second-hand vehicles to our country. And we introduced a stringent kind of excise tax, which extends to which is going to be to the extent of 700% when it is an old car. But we make it zero for new cars. So that's how we are trying to enhance. And we are working with Ministry of Health for post-crash challenge aggressively. And we are working on the establishment of a real database system for accidents where all of us, Ministry of Health and our ministry, can access real-time data whenever accident happens. So by taking all these measures, we're seeing few results, and we believe that there are lots of things to be done, not only in in the ratification of laws, but also in the enforcement of those laws that we have ratified in the House of People's Representatives. And for that, we are working aggressively with federal and regional policies, and we are having a monthly campaign which is going to promote walking and cycling in different parts of our cities.
So other countries can learn from what you've done, and you made mention of education and youth, and we want to get to Giovanni about that and find out a little bit more about that. But let's now go to the Commission, Walter Goetz, and Walter. There's an EU-Africa task force on mobility. We're talking about partnership here. That's what EDD is all about. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also about the road safety observatories? I think that's also very interesting, and sensitizing people to what they need to do to cut those casualties in half by 2030. Right?
Yes, thank you, Chris. First of all, I would like to apologize that Commissioner Vălean cannot be here. She would like to have be here because she is in charge of transport policy for the whole European Union. And we have, of course, our target to decarbonize transport and to digitalize transport, but road safety is one of the central pillars which we have in our European policy making. If I may, our first task is, of course, to ensure road safety and improve it even further within the European Union. We have already quite a good record, but we still have 20,000 deaths per year in the European Union in road accidents, which I think is far too high. And there have been two major ministerial declarations in the last years, the Valletta Declaration and the Stockholm Declaration, to halve these figures by 2030. So, Chris, road safety is first of all predominantly for us a task also still within the European Union. Yep. But you asked, of course, then what are we doing in the outreach to our neighboring countries? And we have this road safety observatory which was introduced for the neighboring countries like Western Balkans and Eastern Central European countries. But we have also the outreach to the African countries, and that there we are very strong in the cooperation with the EU, with the African Union Secretariat, which happens to be in Addis Ababa, you know. My commissioner has very good working relations with the Transport Commissioner of the African Union, Ms. Amana Abu Said. And now when it comes to Africa, of course, there's different challenges than in the European Union. In Europe, we can legislate. And we do then, of course, regulations for driving license, for roadworthiness of cars. We invest money also in infrastructure. And so we have the whole cycle from infrastructure, vehicle, driver, and the whole ecosystem and safety environment. For Africa, it's such a big continent with so many different countries and different problems and needs. The work of the European Commission in this platform, which you have mentioned, is more in the task force with the EU-African Union, is in the first hand, of course, best practices sharing. We also finance, to some extent, on the ground projects in Africa, and there is a lot of.
Have you done that with Ethiopia?
With Ethiopia,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
I would need to ask the minister, but for instance, in Zambia, there were some bicycle lines financed or pedestrian crossings, and I know that similar projects are done in a lot of countries in the African Union. But I think one of the major issues which we have in this task force is, of course, to look also in awareness raising and in best practices in cooperation, so that information sharing and expertise sharing is something which can happen between the European Union and with Africa.
Now, let's move on to youth. Giovanni Pintor, founder of #Adesso Basta, which, if you don't know Italian, it means now that's enough. Adesso Basta. Because I might just make quick reference that he lost two brothers in a car accident. And this is why one of the things that drives you to do what you're doing, but you're sensitizing and raising consciousness among youth with cultural events, right? Sports, art, music. Tell us about that.
So first of all, thank you. I am here as a founder of Adesso Basta, as you said. I'm here representing the UN Road Safety Fund. And I'm here as a young leader elected among a talented pool of youngsters worldwide. We're 11, and I've been chosen for my expertise, which lies at the intersection between road safety and development. So in Sardinia, I am fighting this war, I would say, to reframe road safety as something attractive. I believe that road safety is too much of a problem to be not prioritical in states' agendas. We're talking about 1.3 million people dying every year, but first of all, we're talking about the first cause of death for young people. So what I'm doing in Sardinia is basically through funny activities like hip-hop concerts, basketball tournaments, modern art exhibitions. We are raising awareness, gathering an extraordinary number of youngsters, and making road safety an opportunity, a political opportunity. So,
That it's cool to drive responsibly, right?
yes,
part.
I must say that I do advocate for a safer road infrastructure because,
Yeah,
as you said,
that too. Yeah.
as you said, sorry if I get a bit emotional, but I lost my brothers because of a precise curve, which is very known in Sardinia for being a very dangerous curve.
Ah.
So actually, I am happy today because after 5 years of fight, the Italian government is going to work on that curve for an intervention worth 3 million to 4 million euros. So no more victims, at least in that curve.
They agreed, adesso basta.
Yes,
right?
I hope so.
I got time for one quick question from the audience. Would anyone like to ask a question? Or do we have something via Slido? If we don't, we will move on. We have a question. Ah, good, good. Thank you, Jean. Merci. Yeah, way over there, tout là-bas. If we can take the microphone over here, please. And if you can identify yourself, please. Microphone is running to you. There you go.
Thanks for the opportunity to ask the question. Christina from World Bicycle Relief, an NGO that provides bicycles as a form of mobility for rural developing regions. My question would be, where in your priorities and policies are the bicycles? Can you talk to that?
Who would like to answer the because I missed the question? Go ahead. Yes, please, please, Minister, Madam Minister.
Thank you very much. In my country, Ethiopia, when we ratified the non-motorized transport strategy during the COVID-19 pandemic, the center of that non-motorized transport strategy, along with walking, was cycling. And to be able to create awareness and to be able to encourage our people to cycle more in the cities, we have regular monthly cycling campaigns in different parts of our cities at the same time, in different regional governments, including the capital. And as well as recently in the Council of Ministers, we have ratified an incentive for cycles so that they will be imported with almost zero tax rate, where they could be assembled in our country. And at this particular spot, I would like to forward this question for the participants of the private sector, if they are listening live or if they are here, to come and invest in my country where they have tax incentives to assemble cycles and avail it to my people with reasonable amount of price. Thank you very much.
Very good. You're throwing down the gauntlet. Listen up. Yes, we need more private sector in this. We also have a question via Slido. So do feel free to put in your questions via Slido. What role do bicycles play in this? What role do bicycles play in this? Who would like to talk about that? Maybe Jean. Yes, please, Jean.
I'm happy to cover that because, you know, you have a new mobility which is arriving.
Yeah.
Which are bicycle, what is called e-scooter, and I mean mainly in the cities. And over 50% of road crashes are occurring in cities. And we have been highlighting the progress made in European countries, for example. But this arrival of new mobility can become very dangerous if it is not proper assessed and regulated. So we can see that bicycle incidentally are now going quicker. So we must make sure that bicycle users will use helmet. And you know, the head is the most vulnerable part of the human being.
You know that well.
When you fall, the first part of your body which hits the ground is your head. So we need to make protection. And then, unfortunately, bicycle users, e-scooter users, they think that they have all the rights. So they don't pay attention of the regulation of the code, and as they don't require to have a driving license, they feel that everything is allowed, and it has created in any cities around the world, it has created one increase of road injuries. So it's something which need to be policed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it will be a regular increase, and we will. It's becoming alarming. So on one side, it's very good. It's very good because it's very healthy, and some countries, mainly, countries like Netherlands, Scandinavian countries.
Of course, yeah. But other countries don't do that as much, right?
I've been progressing. I've been really making some specific lanes for bicycle users. But this problem needs to be addressed, and it's something we discuss regularly with mayors of cities. Incidentally, 2 months ago, with the mayor of New York, we launched a program on that to be able to control it better.
Yeah, it makes so much sense that you're a special envoy. I mean, a former race car driver saying it's okay to ride a bike, right? And you should wear a helmet. Listen to this guy.
Maybe one thing, because I must say, when I was appointed by Ban Ki-moon as his special envoy, and now by Antonio Gutierrez, people said how Mr. Speed is becoming Mr. Road Safety.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If you monitor what has happened, the progress which has been done in motor racing. Motor racing is what's the most dangerous sport in the world.
Yeah.
And now Formula One is probably one of the most safest sport in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So motor racing has to be considered as a laboratory. And it's something which is very interesting, because there is a lot which I've been learning thanks to motor racing to apply on the roads.
Hashtag EDD22. That's a perfect one to send out on the hashtag. Let's move on. Let's try to stay on time. Moving on to part 2 of this discussion. Before we get to this new book, thanks to Jean, this one is about opportunities and solutions, impact of road safety on climate, but also for inclusion. We're thinking about climate, we're thinking about inclusion. Let's move to Madam Minister on inclusion, about the importance of women in this. It's very important.
Yeah. Definitely. When we consider road safety and when we consider transport, we cannot leave 50% that contributes for the whole population.
Indeed.
We believe that women at the center are at the center of these activities that we do. And there are several activities that we are undertaking to be able to make sure that all the different modes of transport that we avail are going to address the needs of our people, specifically women. And for that, we are working with different development partners to be able to make sure that they are going to be safe whenever they use public transport. They're going to be safe whenever they use the pedestrian roads. As you know, as a woman, there are several engagements that they do. They have to, especially in Africa, especially in my country, they are responsible for availing everything for the house. They are responsible for taking care of their kids, and that's going to make them to be exposed for accidents more frequently. And we must be able to make sure that they're going to be safe whenever they are carrying out their livelihood activities as responsible heads and part of the household. So for that, we are encouraging and giving education with different development partners that I really want to acknowledge. And at the same time, we really want to request maybe European Development Commission to work with us in different aspects. Maybe we may have some moments after this panel, as we have several interests for infrastructure development and availing different kinds of alternatives and others as well. So we are making them as a center. And having a woman transport minister, I believe that it's going to contribute its part. And in our cabinet, we have nearly about 9 cabinet members, women, and every decision that we make as a nation is going to consider the most vulnerable. which is the woman. Thank
Very
you.
good. Very good. Let me move to Walter Götz and noting that next week is a high-level meeting of the UN General Assembly on road safety. Can we talk about the involvement of the European Commission in that and this idea of inclusion and green mobility?
Well, the European Commission works, of course, very closely with the UN and will be deeply involved in this process, which you mentioned for next week. I think our main challenge is to channel the right investments into the right needs, like infrastructure. I mean, the European Union can invest a lot in the European Union, abroad, in bicycle lanes, which was earlier mentioned, in better road surfaces, in better crossings and pedestrian crossings, etc. So we have an investment issue here, and as a challenge and as an opportunity. The other opportunity which I would like to mention is the digitalization. It was not yet so much put up, but I think if you look into the new digital possibilities which we have in the transport system, and particularly in the road sector, with driver assistance system, more efficient use of traffic information, sharing of data between cars and infrastructure, then you can see that you can make the traffic more efficient, and which is also a decarbonization issue.
Yeah.
And you can use all these new technologies to reduce the human error in our individual traffic. That's why I think where we can also cooperate with the United Nations at global scale is to make sure that new technologies are brought into the market to help foster road safety across the globe.
While we're on that, Walter, I have a question here in Slido. What are your views on autonomous vehicles and robo-taxis to use precious limited resources much more efficiently? What do you think about that?
Well, the European Commission, we are supportive for these new technologies. We are also technological neutral in our policy making. So this emerges now also from private markets, from sectors. Car makers are looking into opportunities of autonomous vehicles. They, of course, need to operate in a very safe environment. If that is all very well done, I think they will increase road safety massively because they reduce the human error factor in the whole thing. But we shall not underestimate that, of course, you create new threats for road safety, like cybersecurity threats. You can also have a failure in software technologies, etc. So it's a very complex issue where we, from the European side, would try to look into, do we have the right regulatory environment to bring these things into the market, where I would say safety first. That is certainly an approach which we would apply, safety first.
Okay. Jean, very briefly, because I want to get to Giovanni, but please.
Yes, but we will get to Giovanni, but maybe some comment, because it is true that, autonomous car, is proceeding quite well. New technologies, electronic support on cars is something which is very common now and mainly in Europe. For example, your electronic stability control is compulsory and it's a big driver ahead. But you must not forget something. 92% of the victims are occurring in the developing world. And the age of cars is between 20 to 50 years old. So those people will remain vulnerable even if we increase the level of the cars in the developed world.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a very complex situation, because on one side we are talking about future technology, we are talking about technology which are already existing, but unfortunately the low and middle income countries do not have access to those technologies. That's why they need support. And maybe two other comments which are linked to the high-level meeting in New York.
Okay.
It's a great news.
Yeah.
Because it's the first time that in New York all the countries will be represented to speak about road safety.
Very good.
So it's becoming on top of the agenda. And last remark, a word about the UN Road Safety Fund. And I'm happy to have the head of the fund here, Enika Henry. Maybe you can just here, and she will be happy to answer to question. But again, it's something which is new. It was voted by member states in 2018, and it's due to help developing world to progress on road safety.
Yeah.
So slowly and slowly, I mean, things are improving.
Bravo. Well, that's something worth mentioning, is that there are so many high-level people in this audience, and that after this only lasts 1 hour, but hopefully the conversation continues among all of you here. Giovanni, what about, now, cultural events, great, sports events, great. What about, thinking about inclusion and climate, what about schools? What about social services? How can you mobilize those in the effort?
So this is a bit of an unexpected question, so I have to freestyle. I would say that case studies like Korea, South Korea, for example, can teach us how achievable is road safety compared to other global issues. At the UN Road Safety Fund, where I also work, we are trying to reframe road safety as something really achievable. South Korea, in this case, was counting too many victims between the children close to school. In 10 years, it has been able to have these victims just by implementing safe school zones.
Really?
So this is one of the global challenges, which is very apolitical. We're all mutually interested in not dying on the road.
Yeah.
And it's very achievable. So this is my main point.
Okay,
Differently from the most aspirational SDGs, which is, of course, fundamental. Road safety is something that is really achievable. I envision a future in which this panel won't be needed anymore, because we will be achieving SDG 3.6 until 2030.
EDD 22, that hashtag. Think about that. Hopefully we won't need this event anymore, right? Let's hope for that. And I hope to see results from, they just cut the speed limit here inside Brussels to 30 kilometers an hour. What do you think, Mr. Speed? That's that's a good. I want to see results. I hope to see results from that.
I tell you, it's again a problem of communicating well.
Yeah.
Because it can look crazy to say, okay, in a big avenue we are going to drive 30 kilometers an hour. But what we need to control, and Walter was mentioning that, is to improve traffic. The time which is lost is not by reducing the speed. The time which is lost every day in cities is because of traffic. Yeah. I was in London yesterday. To do 1 kilometer, it takes 1 hour.
You might as well walk, right? Sometimes. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Here we are not talking about speed limit.
Yeah.
And that's a priority. But clearly in the cities, at 30 kilometers an hour, it's much safer.
Absolutely.
And whatever can be done to drop the number of victims has to be done. And we know that speed is the #1 killer.
Can I take that as a takeaway from you? Because I got to state a time. So that's your wrap up. Let's move to the minister. In 1 or 2 words, what's the takeaway here? What's the future? What is the untapped opportunity that we see?
Concerning the green mobility that you mentioned earlier, I want to say a few words. The policy that we have in my country really favors green mobility, and decarbonizing transport is one of our priority. And because of that, we have set a target to have about 148 electric vehicles in the coming 9 years. And for that, we have 2 assembly lines for the electric vehicles in our country currently. And we're going to have charging stations, minimum 40 in the capital, in few months' time. And that's going to help us to decarbonize. But generally, in road safety, what I believe is we need to reduce speed. And I fully agree with Excellency Special Envoy for Road Safety, Jean-Tad. We have to limit the speed in the city. And we are working towards that. We recently ratified regulation by the Council of Ministers to limit the speed to a certain extent in some part of our country. And we have to save life. we have to give attention for road safety, especially for developing countries like ours. We need to invest on the youth, which is going to be the future of our nation. If we don't save life, if we don't work on road safety, we may not be able to become in a position to make sure that the future of youngsters is going to be in good hands.
Absolutely.
So as a policymakers, we need to give attention for the issue of road safety parallel to other things that we give priority. Thank you very
Madam
much.
Minister. Thank you. And Walter, 30 seconds, please. I'm out of state of time here.
I fully agree with the Minister. I think experience sharing and awareness raising is something which is an untapped potential still in many countries around the world about road safety. But I would also add that an untapped potential for us is also to even further increase the cooperation between all stakeholders. That's governments, that's the ministers, the international institutions, and also private sector NGOs. We need to use the joint forces. Nobody can solve this problem alone. No institution and no country could solve it alone. That's why I think the major untapped potential is better cooperation and partnerships on road safety across the world.
Partnerships, that's what
Yes.
it's all about. Giovanni, very quickly, 30 seconds.
Actually, I have to agree with you. I would have said the same thing, so I have again to,
Okay.
to freestyle. I would say that, yes, reframing road safety as something very achievable through enhanced partnership is really the kernel of SDG 3.6 and what we all have to do to achieve acceptable global level of road safety.
Okay, very good. Let's give a big hand to all the speakers, please. And if I can excuse some of you. Let's see. Yes, Madam Minister, thank you very much. Yes, please also, Mr. Goetz. And I think we add another chair. And we could call up the other speakers here, please. The three other speakers. We need one extra chair, guys. And this is about the book, the launching of the book of the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for Road Safety. It's called The Road Ahead, 26 Voices for Safe and Sustainable Mobility. Sections on green transport, economy, education, gender equality, health, partnerships. It's got the mayors of Paris, of Bogota, transport ministers of Australia, Malaysia, so many more. And Giovanni.
Chris, I'll have to join you because I also have to speak.
Well, this is good. Well, this is what we do. No, va bene, va bene.
Okay,
no. So let's ask you, first of all, maybe tell us a little bit more about your personal story and how this moved you to write what you did, because it's in that piece that you wrote in the book, right?
So first of all, thank you. It's gonna be funny reading this book with some of the most important people in the domain of road safety globally, and then finding Giovanni Pintor, which is a humble young leader. I will share my experience. I'm not gonna spoil too much, otherwise they won't read it.
Yeah, that's right. Don't spoil it.
So
yeah.
I will speak about the day that changed my life and convinced me to really advocate for safer infrastructure in my island, and then broaden my perspective and yes, commit towards global road safety. That's all. I invite you to read the book.
Giovanni, thank you very much. Big hand to Giovanni. Thank you. Grazie. Grazie molto. Grazie. Sardinia is a beautiful island. Can I move to the ACP Africa, Caribbean, Pacific Secretary General Jorge Rebelo Pinto Chicotti. Bon dia, Jorge.
Bom dia.
Bon dia.
Muito bom dia.
From Angola, right?
Yes, indeed.
But you represent 73 African
79.
Caribbean, 73, which are the most effective.
79 member states
Yep.
across Africa, the Caribbean, and Pacific.
And so what moved you to write what you did in this book?
Well, I think that, first of all, I have to congratulate Mr. Jean-Claude and the initiative of the United Nations to consider road safety as indeed one of the biggest challenges that our communities have. First, because nobody is as sensitive as we are supposed to be. People are not conscious that there are indeed so many people dying every year from road accidents. And also, from where we come from, most of our member states are not aware that indeed this is a very big challenge. And yet, many people in developing countries are indeed affected by the high numbers of deaths happening every year. So that's why I felt that it is indeed very important for the OECPS to champion this issue as something that should be at the heart of our leaders in their planning, to consider that road safety is indeed one of the areas that is behind in most of our countries, and it has got to be placed at the center of their concerns so that we reduce the death of people, but also we improve road safety, we improve the cyclist safety in our countries.
And that's what the ACP can play a role in doing that.
Indeed,
right?
we can play this role because we represent 79 member states. Most of our experts spend time on helping member states to improve policy, to elaborate policy, to have strategies that are in conformity with their development goals. And indeed, road safety is one of them. So we are here to support, indeed, our member states to do well.
Thank you, Georges. Let me move on to Wim Jansen, please. Wim, CEO of JC Deco, Benelux, Israel. Most of us know JC Deco from the outdoor signs and from the bikes that we use in the rental bikes in the cities, that sort of thing. Started by two brothers, actually. And there is, for instance, a New York City awareness campaign on street furniture about traffic safety starting up very soon, but you do other things as well. Please let us know quickly.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, road safety and all the initiatives I hear today are really important, but they need one thing in common, and that is they need to be communicated, because we need to explain to people what these initiatives are. We need to reach them to the heart, and at JCDecaux, we're a worldwide company, #1 in the world in out of home, and we reach 850 million people each day, so we can play a huge role in this. And we've been partnering over the past years together with also Mr. Jean Todt and on these initiatives. And in the meantime, we have done more than 10 billion messages to communicate about road safety. So it's really a card that we have to play. We are a player of the cities. The accidents of road safety happen there. And this has been something that is very long and very important for us.
Very good. Thank you very much. Let us move on to Rob Enink, Deputy Director for Road Safety Research at SWOV Institute. That's the Institute for Road Safety Research in the Netherlands. And what moved you to write the book? Obviously, there are similarities in these accidents around the world that you can maybe find some ways to inform policymakers to change things, right?
Exactly. That's exactly our mission, to use our scientific knowledge to help improve road safety. So what our type of institute can do is provide you with the knowledge on where the crashes take place and what sort of measures actually help and which type of countermeasures maybe not be so effective. And that's what we try to do in this book as well. Yeah.
Very good. Wonderful. Let's move on to Per Eriksson, Executive Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer at Autoliv. That's a leading Swedish-American auto safety parts supplier. Again, the idea of the private sector involved in this and the importance of that, I guess that probably was what in part drove you to write for this book, right?
Indeed. And I mean, we've all heard the figures today. More than 1.3 million people.
It's stunning. It's
year.
Absolutely shocking, isn't it?
And adding to that all the people that get injured.
Yeah.
So behind each and every of those numbers, there's a story.
A family.
There's a person, there's a family.
A family.
And so also for me and my family. And that's why. That's why we in Autoliv are engaged in this topic. That's why we want to contribute in our way. We are the world leader when it comes to mobility safety system. And it's our business, it's our purpose to save more lives. And we want to contribute also through this book, but this is not really about the launch of a book. This is really about the call for action, the commitment needed, bringing all the various stakeholders, may that be public or may that be private actors in this sector, together, utilizing the knowledge that we have, utilizing the expertise that we have, and put it into use. I mean, to get to the sustainability transformation that we're talking about, road safety is critical. And there's so much more we need to do to make sure that this is evenly distributed across the globe. And we know how to do it.
Right.
It's not new technology, it's not new insights. We know how to do it.
So it's putting it into action.
Exactly. This is all about us coming together and show the commitment. And I hope that this book and our commitment to the Road Safety Fund shows that commitment. And I know we share with so many others. So it's about to get the job done.
It takes that commitment, and it takes that focal point of a special envoy from the UN, a former race car driver, Jean-Claude, to do that. Thank you very much. Our big hand to our speakers here, as well as the first panel. Thank you very much for joining us. The conversation could go on after this, of course. Remember, hashtag EDD22, sorry, on that, and hashtag Safe Green Mobility. Our thanks to our translators, our interpreters over there doing a hard job. Thank you very much. And my name is Chris Burns. Hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. The show continues.